You ever go looking for something that you've lost, and you look and look and look only to realize that you are already holding it? Sometimes it's like that with simplifying fractions. We work at simplifying them only to realize that they were already in simplest form. Today I'm going to give you some shortcuts and a free download to help speed up the process of knowing if you're already in simplest form. Let's go. What's up everyone, it's your old pal Mr. D here with you once again to talk some math. If you're new, smash that subscribe button so you can know about each and every new episode that comes out so you can grow and become an even more successful mathematician. Let's get started today. Simplest form, as you may remember from our previous video, is all about writing an equivalent fraction with the smallest possible numbers. We talked about how to simplify, remember? Divide the numerator and denominator by the greatest common factor. But today, it's all about how to know if you're already simplified. There are 4 easy tricks of knowing if you're in simplest form. Here's the first. One way you know if you're already there is if the numerator is 1. Yep, if your numerator is a 1, there's no way you can divide each side of the fraction by the same number to simplify it. I mean, think about it. Simplifying requires you to divide by a common factor. But when you look at 1, the only factor it has is 1. So the only thing you could divide each side by would be 1. But dividing each side by 1 would make the fraction stay exactly the same. So that's why any fraction with a 1 as the numerator is already in simplest form. Now, the second way you can tell if you're in simplest form is by seeing if the numbers of the fraction are in sequential order. That means they're numbers that go one right after the other. Look at these examples. 2/3, 11/12, and 8/9. They're all in sequential order, as in 2, then 3, 11, then 12, 8, then 9. If the numbers of your fraction are numbers where the denominator is 1 more than the numerator, you're in simplest form. These numbers would never share a common factor besides 1 because they're only 1 apart from each other. And as you already know, anything divided by 1 stays exactly the same. So there's no way to simplify a fraction that has numbers that are in sequential order. Now, I should mention this though. If you had a fraction like 9/8, then you would have some work to do because that's an improper fraction, where the numerator is greater than the denominator. What I'm showing you here is that the sequential order of fractions and simplifying only works with regular, proper fractions where the numerator is 1 less than the denominator. The third way you can tell if you're already in simplest form is if the denominator is a prime number. This one is slightly harder because you need to know what prime numbers are, but it's super easy. Prime numbers are any numbers that have exactly 2 factors, 1 and itself. For instance, let's list the factors of 13. What times what makes 13? 1 times 13, and that's it. So 13 only has 2 factors, 1 and 13. And that's why 13 is a prime number. You can't reach it with a multiplication problem unless you did 1 times itself. Now, look at a number like 12. What times what makes 12? 1 times 12, 3 times 4, 2 times 6, right? So 12 has more than 2 factors. It actually has 6 factors. So 12 is not a prime number. Since it has more than 2 factors, it's something called a composite number. Now, back to simplifying. If the denominator is one of these prime numbers, you are in simplest form. Here's a list of all the prime numbers between 0 and 20. Feel free to write these down. They're also listed in the description of this episode, so go ahead and jot those down to help you. Now, if the denominator, not the numerator, the denominator is one of those numbers, you're already in simplest form. Now, numerators can be prime and still get simplified. For instance, 7/14 has a prime number in the numerator, but 7/14 can get simplified to 1/2. So some examples of fractions with a denominator that's prime are numbers like 6/11, 5/13, and 4/7. All of these have prime numbers as the denominator, so they're already in simplest form. The last way you can tell if the fraction is already in simplest form is if the greatest common factor is 1. And for more on that, let's go to the whiteboard. Okay, here we are with the fraction 7/12. Now remember, to simplify fractions, you have to divide the numerator and the denominator by their greatest common factor. So let's list the factors of 7 and 12. What times what makes 7? 1 times 7, and that's it. Okay, and 12? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Now let's compare these lists. What is the largest number that appears in both lists? Well, just 1, right? There are no numbers that are in both lists besides that. So, since the greatest common factor is 1, that means 7/12 is already in simplest form. Again, you could divide each side by 1, but it wouldn't change the numbers. You'd still end up with 7/12. Okay, now let's try this one. But this time we're going to try using the shortcut that we learned in the simplifying fractions video. So we're going to ask this question. Are 12 and 16 part of the same multiplication family? Yes. They're part of the times 1s, times 2s, and times 4s. So if I was going to simplify this, I'd divide each side by 4 and be done. 12/16 was not in simplest form already. I would simplify this by dividing each side by 4. Again, I'm looking at the fraction and asking, are these numbers part of the same multiplication family? Now, how about this one? 21/32. Let's ask the shortcut question. Are 21 and 32 part of the same multiplication family? Pause the video here and see if you can figure it out. Are they part of the same multiplication family? The answer is no. 21 and 32 have lots of factors, but they are not part of the same times family except for the number 1. And as we know, if you divide something by 1, that number stays exactly the same. So 21/32, even though they're larger numbers, is already in simplest form. I have a free download for you that lists the 4 ways to tell if you're in simplest form, available in the description box of this episode. So don't forget to snag that if you like. For more math videos like this one, or for the 1-minute straight to the point math reminder videos, click the links that you see on the screen here. Until next time, guys, I'm Mr. D. Thanks for joining me.